We're just going to jump straight into this video because I don't really know how to start it. I don't like Francis Ngannou. I'm going to tell you why in just a second. I do want to say before we get into it, hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels, and this is a video that I didn't really want to make. I've been on the fence about making this video, okay? Especially since Francis Ngannou has been in the light ever since Jon Jones had that fight announced. He's been talking about Cyril Gane. He's been in and out of the UFC, or like talks about coming to the UFC. The point is, there's just been drama around him, and my distaste for him isn't exactly like just to do with the UFC and his negotiations and holding up the division, stuff like that, because that's a lot of things that you see when people say I don't like Francis Ngannou. I hate him for an entirely different reason, and I don't know if I should say the word hate. It's just I don't like it. Like, there's some, and this isn't exclusive to Francis Ngannou. I'll tell you the biggest thing for me. When Francis Ngannou finishes a fight, he jumps on his opponent with like all of his might. Take a look at pretty much every single one of his knockouts. The one where it sticks out to me the most is Alistair Overeem. He knocks him out, and I don't want to hear the it's in the moment type thing. It's when this guy clearly falls over in front of him, and he puts all of his weight, all 300 pounds, into his shot, full force of a guy who's completely unconscious and laying there. You had time to think about it. There are so many times where you had to think about it. You could excuse a couple of those finishes, but take a look at the vast majority of his fights. He just has the intentions of actually hurting people. It's different if you have bad blood with somebody. It's different if it's something like Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier. If Jon Jones wanted to keep punching Daniel Cormier, I get it. I wouldn't be upset about that. You know what I mean? It's just stuff like that. Dan Henderson, completely justified in jumping in the air and landing on Michael Bisping. I'm just talking about, it's almost like, I don't know, does he get pleasure from it? That could be up for debate, but I feel like he just like wants to add to his highlight reel because of his ego. And I don't think that's okay. Like, you're playing with people's lives. When he knocked out Alistair Overeem, I actually thought he died. Like, truthfully, that is one of the times where I sat back and I'm like, oh my God, he might be dead. Alistair fell over after that, after getting his head taken off. Like, the force of that punch, actually, he could have ripped the skin. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Alistair's head actually fall off. I'm not even kidding. But then he's laying there, obviously knocked out. And Ngannou just doesn't think about it. He just goes down and slams all of his might, all of his weight, and he's a big guy. Could you imagine that happening to you? Could you imagine like that happening to one of your family members? And I understand, like, if you're going to the UFC, you're risking danger, but I believe it to be very poor sportsmanship, and I don't think it's okay, and I don't think any respectable person would really do that to another human being. Think about the like vicious intent that has to be there. Like, truthfully, and there's sporty competition. Like, could you imagine if you were fighting somebody, just sparring somebody? And I understand the UFC, there's a little bit more into it. And again, danger is part of it, but this is just completely unnecessary. It's insane to me how you can knock somebody out, flat out. You watch them fall in front of you, but instead of just sitting there, maybe checking in if they're okay, you just decide to hurt them and play with their lives. It's crazy to me that somebody can do that. I don't understand why. And again, I would understand if he didn't like the person. There's been many times in that. You know what I mean? We've seen many times of people just pounding away because they don't like somebody. That's different. Just to do it just because you feel like it, or just to do it because it adds to your ego, it's ridiculous to me, and it's inexcusable. I truthfully believe that. And this isn't something that's exclusive to Francis Ngannou. He just does it more than I've seen in many fighters. I automatically don't like any fighter that does this to somebody. There's many fighters who do it, but this guy it's almost different because he's so big and so powerful, and he's really playing with people's lives. Like, there's a difference between like somebody like Brandon Moreno knocking you out, and I'm not saying Brandon does it. I don't, at least at the top of my head, he hasn't done it, where Brandon Moreno knocks somebody out and then decides to give you an extra shot. Francis Ngannou is like, you know that meme where it's like how dropping a Ford Escort on your chin. It's real. Like, this is not somebody that you could just do that to, and it's not his fault that he's that big, but at the same time, you got to take into consideration what you're doing to somebody, and he just doesn't. That's why I don't like him. I don't like that he does that to people, and I think it's disgusting, quite frankly. This is a problem in the UFC that I don't understand why more people don't talk about, and I'm talking about not just Francis Ngannou here. This is just why I don't like Francis. So many fighters do this, and I don't think it's okay. At times, again, it's justified. But for the vast majority, no. Like, you could even argue that even if you don't like somebody, that's not right to do. I don't like what he does, and I'm honestly glad that we may not see him fight in the UFC again, because if he fights in boxing, at least, he won't be able to do that to somebody. If he knocks him out, he won't be able to just jump with all of his force on there. Maybe there'll be a 10 count. You know what I mean? If you stuck around this long in the video, I hope you understand where I'm coming from. And like, even when people talk about not liking Ngannou, They talk about him holding up the division and all that stuff. Yeah, that's fine. He wants more money. Go do it. But that's the reason I don't like him. And I'd love to know what you think about this. Do you disagree with me? Or do you think it's part of the sport? Because honestly, I understand why you would disagree with me with this. I don't think it's okay. That's all. So I'd love to hear from you guys down below in the comments. Let me know what you think. And thank you so much for watching this video.